Hey everyone, how's it going? Hopefully everything's set up correctly. Got the stream going. I have my keys shut. Yep, keyboard shortcuts are working. So gonna be getting started soon here, hopefully. So as I said in the chat, I don't know if people see the chat after, before. Do you see here history messages or whatever it's called? But yeah, going to be getting things going soon. This the stream is going to be on Webpack Module Federation. So I was at one of those digital online conferences recently, and it was actually one of the core maintainers of Webpack. It actually got a slot and talked about this and kind of announced Webpack Module Federation. I thought it was a really cool idea. Disclaimer, obviously before the stream starts, it's the dyslexic developer. This is the Hello Drunk World series, so there will be drinking and smoking throughout. Don't cast this on your TV because you'll struggle to see what's going on. Just getting everything set up in here in my local environment. Make sure everything's good to go. You should be hearing a little bit of tunes going. What's up, Bill? I'm one true fan. It's crazy not being able to hear the music playing back, but yeah. Yeah, so as I was saying, so this is on Webpack Module Federation. I think this really excited me. If you work in a very isolated agency style environment where you're not building large scale applications, it's something you never really think about or you never really touch upon. But I think for me, I've been working in I don't want to say corporate environment, but I've been working in a company that has a couple of different projects, a couple of different kind of products that we build and sell and deliver to our customers. And we've always kind of, as everyone does, everyone struggles with this whole how do you share modules, how do you share components across applications. I always like to thinking of it our setup is almost like Google, as in the Google product ecosystem, where Google has Gmail, it has Docs, Sheets, Slides, I think they have something else, and they need to be able to share code across all these, and it's this one unified platform that solves all their needs. Different companies try and do this and try and achieve that, but it is a bit of a struggle at times. And how do you kind of build this one cohesive application that doesn't, you're not changing to a brand new URL, a brand new domain every time that you're going in between products and messing around with things. And when I always think back, you're building something, everyone's using Webpack to build and bundle and make this super lean, tight, compiled bit of source code that they can ship out to all their different users and different customers. There's always constant improvements there, but how can you build this cohesive system? And recently there was I think it was mid 2016, there was a spike and this term kept on popping up on Twitter, and it was micro front ends. Everyone just laughed it down, gave a shit, and at the time I did as well. I was micro front ends, it's not worth the time. Build several applications that work in the same ecosystem. But then you struggle to have that unification across your products. You struggle to give the same experience to all users across the products, and it's always the joke of many companies have microservices, but it's a micro monolith. It's the one huge application that is just 10 different repos that fold into one single source of truth, and that's your one point of failure. That's your monolith, instead of this actual microsystem architecture where you can have teams actively working and shipping parts of the product independent of everyone else, and there isn't this one bundle that holds everything and controls everything. So on today's stream, we're going to dig into like Webpack's proposed solution for this, and this is still in beta, so everything can change and probably will change, and there's no standard set for this a lot of time. I've been like following a guy on YouTube who does a lot of tutorials on this, and he seems to be clued in. I think he's almost working with the Webpack team and how to like build this out as a concept that can scale and grow, because micro frontends exist at the moment. They're done in a very hacky, half-assed way, and this seems to be one of the few things that it really caught my attention, caught my eyes. Like, this could be a solution to a problem that we've all experienced. The fact that Webpack are doing it natively and it's supported by Webpack, it doesn't feel like a hacky workaround, if you know what I mean. If you're on the stream and you have like a, as I describe it, a micro monolith, let me know what your tech stack is, what you're working with. What I'm going to show today is React based, but this can work, and excuse the squeaks of my chair, it's an old crappy chair. This can work with any application ecosystem, any tech stack that you have. I use React because that's what I use in my day-to-day, but this will work with anything. I was actually at an online meetup recently. I watched an online meetup, and one of the developers who was describing a similar thing, talking about micro front ends, module federation, and he was an Angular developer, so it shows the fact that this can be used and adapted into Angular. You could go raw pure JS, you could go web components, you could go Vue. It'll fit into your needs, because Webpack is unopinionated. Webpack is a bundler. It's not a framework to build a React app. It just happens to be every blog post I see about this is a React developer's point of view. I hope you're all drinking along at home, because we'll need some alcohol to get us through this. So, that being said, it's time to crack open my chilled, I know sacrilege, chilled bottle of red wine. So cold that it's dripping onto my jeans. If I can get this open. Also a big shout out to my designer wife, who did the t-shirt logo and the logo for the streams. Repping the whole Hello Drunk World. If there's a demand, excuse for the ASMR. Ooh, Spanish beer. Oh yeah, Australia. So I remember I was in Barcelona, and they were saying there's Australia and Australia Dam. There's two types of Australia. Depend where you are in Spain is where they serve up the different flavor of the beer. It must be how we have Rockshore and Harp. It's the same beer but under a different name. So cheers. Pronounced Australia and Australia. Right, enough talking shit about drink. Let's see if my transitions work. I'm gonna flick back. This is the most unprofessional stream you'll ever watch, but there we go. So, as I was saying, we're gonna be talking about module federation. So this is the Webpack official docs for it. There's a lot of text and it's all high-level concepts. What throws me off around this is they have this idea of containers, container reference plugin, module federation plugin, and it all combines in. So these two combine into this plugin, which in all examples I've seen, everyone just uses a module federation plugin. So I think these are if you want to be doing low level, complex shit, this is these are what you want to be using. In most cases, people aren't going to be doing that kind of stuff. So again, walls of text, all this kind of shit. This graphic perfectly explains everything. Yeah, I know. This is your app. These are all your modules that you're dependent on, and the trees grow and grow and grow. And it's that kind of like tree grow structure kind of thing. So I like to use Scaladraw. I think that's what you call it. The kind of draw it. So like this is your traditional what an application would look like. So your application, you've got a header component, which is like your title bar or your nav bar. You have like so this is a shop application. You have a product list component and a basket component. You could build this all into one bundled bit of JavaScript. This could be the one repo, the one file. Yeah, it could be the one JavaScript file. It would be a big file. But traditionally, so like over here, traditionally you're going to have like this is going to be an npm module. This is going to be an npm module, and this is going to be an npm module. So you're going to have maybe something like my dash corp dash header as the module name, and same goes for here, and same goes for here. Basket. So like if you were running this from scratch, you're going to be doing an npm install. Npm install is going to be saying like, okay, install my corp dash header, my corp dash products, my corp dash basket, and then you'll have application as your product. That's your main servable application that you would host on like Netlify or Amazon or something like that, and then you ship that one big bundle. But as these like components grow and your teams get more complex, you might say, well, like our product list or like our product component list changes rapidly, and we want to start adding advancements to this. So we're going to create a team who are going to manage and organize just our product component. Our header has different features, different things going on, so we're going to create a header team, and then we may as well create a basket team as well, because our basket is like calculating what's in your basket, how much have you spent, all that kind of stuff. So you have 3 teams, maybe 4, because you'll have the application team who manage and own the container. These teams are all coding away, advancing, making strides in their products, but every time they want to make a change and release it to customers, they're going to have to create a brand new version of their component. So this might be 1.0.0, and then they add in, we're going to put in a gradient to the header, so now it becomes 1.0 or 1.1.0. One big, gotta be follow, I think it was. I'm terrible. Yeah, one big dingus. Oh yeah. You've been on the stream before. Thanks for the follow. So yeah, like the header team, we're going to release a new version. So now the header is at 1.1.0. For them to release that to customers, they need to then raise maybe a pull request to the application to bump the version in the package JSON, and then trigger a rebuild of the entire product and ship that brand new full product to the customer. What if the product component list is doing the same and the basket team are doing the same? You've got 3 teams constantly releasing features, and if you work in like a fast-paced development environment, you're going to be like pushing out multiple versions all the time. You're releasing, like, I remember seeing a stat from the team who work for Etsy. They deploy on average 50 times a day. Now, pushing out a new npm build is nothing. Creating a new git tag is nothing. But then having to re-release the entire application, run through all your automation suites, all your tests, all that kind of stuff, 50 times a day per team. You're talking 150 deployments a day just to keep everything in sync and everything up to date. That can be, a lot of overhead, a lot of issues. With that yes, there's security and there's validation and there's things in place that you can, assert and manage on. But this is where Webpack module federation comes into place. So now our stack completely changes. So we have our application. I've kept the product list in the main application for convenience. This could be out on its own. But instead of having this npm module for the headers and an npm module for the basket, they're their own hosted components. And at runtime, hence the dotted lines, the application fetches the latest version of that module. So this team for the header component and this team for the basket component, they are like hammering away, deploying, developing, building out their features, but the application isn't rebuilding 50 times or 150 times a day, because every time the user loads the application, they're getting the newest version of what's out there. First jump to here, you're like, well, what about bugs? What about things like that? We'll touch on that in the stream. And a lot of the bugs and a lot of the issues and a lot of the problems you're going to have with this approach, you're going to get with this approach too. It's just going to be a bit more slower. And if you manage this approach better, if you manage this approach well, you won't run into them as much. So enough shitty fucking looking runs. Let's take a look at some code. So I have this application. If I kill this and rerun it, it should. Actually, I'll go into presentation mode. Shouldn't really do much in this. I don't want to go full screen. No. Well, because we have the terminal, we will. So I'm going to do yarn start. So I'm going to yarn start on our home. Home is, I probably should have named these better. So home is our application container. All this is going to do is start up Webpack dev server, create our application. We can see we have an alcohol store because it's Hello Drunk World. Or a nice little banner, drink. I spent far too long, and I know it looks like dog shit, and my designer or wife is probably tearing her hair out at the moment, but I like the fact that this almost has a gradient. Like, it looks like a pint of Guinness. If I could have narrowed in the sides, it would have been too much effort, but it would have been fun. So we have this store where you can buy our drink. Prices have gone up because of lockdown, and people need to recuperate their costs. So we have a store where I can click buy. When I click buy, our basket appears, and we can see our basket has one item, $5.50. If I buy another, we're up to 11. We can buy some hot bites. We can definitely buy some harp. So buy a ton of harp, and then we can click clear because we're drinking far too much. We need to stop. So that's the basic application, and that is following this model at the minute, where each of these are npm modules pulled into one application, shipped as the one source on port 8088 on localhost. So if we look into the code for this, so we can see our home folder, we've got our source that has like our main app. Our main app has our product list, our header, our basket. And then if we go into the package JSON for this, we can see our dependencies are our nav, which is our header, our basket, and we got React and React DOM. So everything's, if you have a large scale application where you have multiple different teams working on things like this, this is where you are right now. But again, as I say, like if the nav team make a change and release a new version, I need to go in here, change this version, build it, release it, ship it. That can be a pain if you want a team to be like moving fast and like breaking shit, but making shit work and making shit cool. So this is where module federation is going to come into play for us. I'm going to make the chair squeak and creak and all that kind of shit. And one thing I'll note is you can see here on our Webpack dependency, we're using a beta version of Webpack. This is all in beta at the moment. It's not released to the public. Hopefully, they're going to iron out some kinks, hopefully develop good, best practices and stuff like that, and then have something to then ship out to people. First, we're gonna take our, let's take our basket and make our basket a federated module. And I've done some prep before this, and I've got some notes and stuff to follow on. So if we run the problems, we should be okay. Actually, no, we'll do the header because the header is very basic. So we have our 3 folders. I'm using like a Yarn workspace for this because it's easy to maintain. But these could be completely different repos, completely different folders in your on your like laptop or PC or whatever the fuck you're using. So first, we're going to kill our main home application. We're going to go into our basket, and we're going to do our Webpack config. So this is a very bog standard Webpack config that says it publishes on port 8082. We've got a dev server. We've got it set up so it can run React using Babel as the loader. I wonder what happens when we run this. I got my little welcome messages on the terminal. So I do yarn start. It may do something, it may not. Oh yeah, so it does this distry listen because it's a module, not an application. There isn't something that you can actually really ship. So I guess I went and did this. Yeah, because I don't have like an actual index file in here. It's not something like I can ship and deliver on its own. So first thing we need to do is take advantage of this new Webpack module or Webpack plugin. So we create a const. I apologize, I can see the camera shaking, but I don't think it picks up too bad. So we're going to say module federation plugin, I think it is. And that is what I was talking about the top of here. Yeah, so we have this, this high level plugin. Now we need to require that. Give me some IntelliSense. So this is going to be, this lives inside Webpack. We don't have to install any new modules. It comes built with that beta version. So we say webpack /lib/container / and then module federation. We're gonna type this right. I'm gonna get rid of our little our little panel there. Federation plugin. I think that's all right. I wonder if I go. Can I go to declaration? What about here? I think that's okay. It'll fail if it doesn't work. So we grab this, go down to our plugins array, and then we're going to create a new plugin. And the plugin takes an object as configuration. There's a couple of things that some of them feel a little bit redundant to type in, but they seem to be okay. So we go name. So we need to give it a name, like kind of like define what it is. So we're going to call it our basket, obviously. Then you need to give it like a library definition, and I think this is something to do with how like Webpack is bundled, because normally Webpack bundles like UMD libraries and CMD, common JS libraries, or I can't do module or ES modules at the minute, but it bundles in like an actual library, so it can run either import it via Webpack as a CDN script tag and all that kind of stuff. So it's a very versatile way of bundling it. So we declare a library, and then our library takes some parameters as well. So it takes the type. This I still yet to figure out why, but we call it, the type is a var, and then we give it a name again. And this is where I think it gets a bit redundant. And this is potentially where you could write, an auto generator to like build out your packages for you. You then need to give it a file name, and this will become more important in a moment. So the file name is actually like, if we go back to Scala draw, the file name is like where it goes off to get it. So like I've said like header.com, but like it's going off to a file hosted on a server. So the standard I've seen so far is everything is called remote entry, ENTRY. This is the dyslexic developer, so things will be typed incorrectly. And then once we've done that, we need to tell it what we want to expose as part of this. So like Webpack's still going to build this as a single bundled dist, but you can say like there's parts of this project I want to expose as, you know, usable modules to the consumer who's absorbing this federated module. So we need to define what it exposes. So I think it gives us WebStorm's autocomplete has been getting amazing so far. There was an update in WebStorm recently where they added AI, machine learning, TM, autocompletion to the ID. It seems to be working well so far. So we need to say it exposes basket, and this will then map to our actual file name. So we define like what the module is, and then we tell the location. This is going to be source/basket. It's going to be source/basket, and then on top of this as well, so you expose what modules you want a consumer to consume. But when you think about it, like if you had, you know, if our header, what am I doing basket? We're in the header. Fuck. So this is going to be, I think it's going to be nav. I was thinking about this before. I'm going off kilter. I'm losing my mind. It's not going to be basket. We've been talking about baskets all day. Whereas this should be the nav and the header component for us, which would make more sense. Good, I caught that already. Yeah. So we're going to call this nav because it's like, if you think about it, you would have like a nav component that exposes a header component. So we'll call this nav. Again, we'll call this nav. And then this is going to be, I'm in the basket. Fuck it. Right, sorry. We're in the basket folder. It's fine. I'm losing my mind. We're already off schedule. Yeah, sorry. So we need to think about shared components. So our basket, say, like our home component uses React, React maybe like load dash, Ramda, RxJS, all these different libraries. If our basket component, it's going to be using these two. So it's going to be using React, React potentially, yeah, more alcohol will definitely help. Thanks, Bill. It's going to be using like, you know, potentially other libraries that our main application might be using too. And this is where sometimes you run the problems where you end up bundling two versions of the same library or two different versions of the same library, and you end up duplicating your dependencies and you end up shipping. Like I've seen it before, and it was a product I worked on where we ended up shipping 5 versions of jQuery to the user because it depended on multiple components that all used a different version of jQuery, and NPM could not resolve to one single version. So that customer got 5 different versions of the same library with minor changes. That's a lot of overhead. If you care about bundle size, care about the data sent down the stream to your customer, you know, that isn't a good experience. It's going to cause slow load times, you know, hard fucking caches and all that kind of stuff. So you can then define what you want to share. So you have like this shared object. Now, the shared can be an object, it can be an array. If it was an array, you would just be doing something like React dash DOM. That means you now have the overhead of managing this as well as everything else. But you can also then pull in the object version of it, where it would be, you know, React and whatever. An easier way to manage this is by actually using the like that own module's dependencies as a list of like, these are the dependencies that I have. If you have it already, don't fetch them. If you don't have them, go fetch them. And a lot of this will come more clear whenever we start pulling this out. So you can say require. So we're pulling in our own package JSON, the packages or the baskets package JSON. And then we can say dependencies. So if we like go to that, it's going to pull in all these different components, all these different dependencies. This is like Ramda, React DOM, stack components, and say that these are shared. If the consumer has these, don't pull them in. Use your own. If it doesn't have them, pull them in. Again, it'll be a bit more clear. So once we've done that, this is set up and this is good to go, but we don't have a way to consume it. So if I go to basket, clear this again, and then do yarn run just to check what commands we have. Yeah, so we have our our build, build module, build Webpack. I think we do start live. Oh, I get in there already. I should drag this up and make it bigger. Oh, can I find what is this called? I bet you I've typed it wrong. So webpack.lib webpack/lib/container/ modlfe federation. It's federation. Is that it? Yeah. So clear, run it again. Oh. This is doing our. So again, we're not going to see anything here, but technically now Basket is hosting its module for anyone to consume. Now, this is using Webpack Dev Server just to host it as a server, so you're not running multiple servers on your machine. This could be literally built and dropped into an S3 bucket on Amazon, and then consumed that kind of way. Which also allows you to enforce security by doing content security policies to say only load modules from our own Amazon accounts, only allow this bucket to talk to that bucket, and that kind of way, so you can't, there's no fear of man in the middle script injection style attacks. So as I said, I've done a little bit playing ahead of time, and this is where I'm going to show about this this idea of the remote entry. So if we go to our home and go to our index.html, so we already got these two in. Yeah, okay, I did a little cheating, went ahead, but it helps with it. So we put in these script tags to say, load in this remote entry script, and because we have two modules, we have two different ones on different ports. These could be a link to, it's a link to a JS file, so it could be hosted anywhere. It's a static file. It doesn't need to be on a web server. But now we want to replace this header with our module federated, or no, it's not a header, the basket. We want to replace the basket with our module federated basket. There's a few things we need to do to really get to that point. We'll stick with Webpack at the moment because we need to configure stuff in Webpack first. So if we go where are we going to go? Yeah, we're going to go to our Webpack config for our home, which is our container application. And again, if anything you're like, what the fuck is going on, shout out in the chat, we can figure this out. So we're going to need that Webpack, we're going to need the module federation plugin again. In fear of me fat finger typing, we will copy and paste that across. So once we add it in, we then need to then say okay, so add this as a plugin. We already have the HTML Webpack plugin, which just injects our currently running script into the head of the index template that I showed it previously. So if we do new module federation plugin, now this will be configured a little bit differently. We still have the same things, so we give it a name. This is going to be home. And we also need to give it a library. This may be an optional step, but every time I've been playing about this, I've done this anyway. Type again as var, because I don't know why. I think maybe var is because you the module federation isn't just code. You can share resources. So your CSS or JSON files or SAS files or SVGs or any web-based document can be a federated module that you can use. So I think that's maybe why var tells it this is shared JavaScript, not shared JSON. I could be wrong. Give it a home again. Give it a name home again. Then we need to give it the remotes. So in our previous example, we exported exposes, as like this exposes these things to be consumed. This needs remotes. So like this is what it remotely is going to consume. So it's taking it from somewhere else and bringing it in. Again, this is an array where we can configure things. So the examples I've seen is always like followed as like MF, so you know it's a module federated. You could maybe have your own company's, you know, branded way of doing it. So we were dealing with the basket. So we're gonna say MF basket is consumed, and it is the, oh, it needs to be a string. And we're putting to the basket that is in our remote. So we had that remote in our basket. This is getting confusing. We have the remote in our basket, and then we're saying, right, well, we want to consume that because we can see it's hosted, and we know the URL because it's hard coded into our index HTML file. That could be dynamically generated, it could be done at runtime as well. There's different ways to go about that. We don't expose anything. We can share things too. I've seen that before, so you can go shared and then just do. So I think this is just to kind of know what we're sharing with. The dependencies. So in that case then, so I have, because I was saying like this is a Yarn workspace, I have like a script at the top level that will concurrently run everything. So if we run this now, yarn start, parallel starts all of them. Now we haven't changed anything in code, but we've got our Webpack set up to, like, say, load these things. So everything should still work as expected. These are our npm based modules. So if I go back to our network, focus on JS files, you'll see like it's failed to get that. It got 8082, which I think is our basket, because it's being exposed, but this one isn't being exposed yet. But as you can see, it fetched our app, it fetched like our different, you know, vendor files. There's nothing here about basket. Even when we, you know, load our basket, nothing happens. So everything's still being pulled in via Home's node modules. So if we go into Home node modules, well, because this workspace are higher up, but it's still using these. So we need to update and change that. Thankfully, in React, this is I don't know if is this in other frameworks. I assume it would, because, you know, they're advanced too. I don't know. So we go back to our main app, which is our home, or like kind of container for our store. We're pulling in our basket here. And then if the selected items is greater than 0, so we've selected at least one item, then we render out our basket. So I now want to render the basket from our federated module, which is being hosted on a server for us. Once that starts, I never have to npm install or update the basket again, because I'll always get the latest working version. So let's start building that out, I guess. So I'm gonna comment this out. Actually, before I do that, I'll comment this out. So we're no longer importing basket from basket/build/basket. We're gonna say const. So we're gonna create a const, and we're gonna go basket. Oh, that's not basket. So we're gonna create a const basket, and it's gonna equal, and then luckily React has this like API called react.lazy, which allows you to lazy load components as they're rendered. So normally, like, these are all built and installed and, you know, pulled in at runtime, not runtime, sorry, build time, where this will only happen at runtime and only when the component is actually rendered on the DOM. So we can say react.lazy, and then lazy takes a function. So you can, like, you know, potentially build dynamically rendering components and that kind of stuff. And then the result is import. And so this is where we jump back to our home config and where we named this mf basket. So we say mf basket slash basket, I think, because that maps to that. Should that be a capital B? I wonder. Because if we're dealing with the basket is being exported as a capital B. Does that mean that that needs to be a capital B? We'll try it out first and see what happens. So, yeah, so now we're saying import mf basket slash basket. That should give us our basket component. So, if we go down now, so that still exists. Or if I fucking type, yeah. So now that instead of that. So we're saying lazily load this. Boom. Thankfully, hot reloading catches all this, so it's recompiled. If I go back to Chrome, clear, reload. So nothing failed yet. But now this is failing. What is it telling us? So this kind of jumps out, add a suspense, fallback. Yes. So because we're using React Lazy, and we're asynchronously loading and rendering the component, whenever this is true, it's going to try and trigger this. But this isn't a component yet. This is an asynchronous HTTP request to get that component. So we need to wrap this up. So we go react.suspense. I'm going to undo that so I don't lose my copy. Yeah, so suspense. I can never spell suspense. I haven't killed anything. Terrible pun. No love in the chat for that. Fuck's sake. So I've used suspense maybe once before. I never find I rarely do asynchronous module loading, and maybe this will kick me anymore. But suspense takes a fallback. Yeah, all lowercase, and the fallback is like a node of what you want to show when it's not rendering. So we're going to do div loading basket. Makes sense. Close that off, and then we move our basket inside. So now it's wrapped in this React suspense. So React suspense can understand that the component below it is an asynchronous component that will be loaded at runtime, and while that component is fetching, it's going to display your fallback. In this case, the fallback is this div that says loading basket. Let's see if this works. Clear our console. I think if we, if I refresh this, kill the console, drop my, so I can change the network speed in the Chrome network panel to like slower 3G, and then click buy. So we'll see loading basket. It's fetching the basket component from this web address. So now it's actively fetching this component's code from a third-party server and loading it in. So we'll bring this back to normal speed. So at the minute, what we've done is we've written a lot of code that got us to the same point where we were before. What was the fucking point of that? But this is where it comes in handy. So if I go to the basket file, which is in, not the build, basket file, which is in a different repository on a different machine run by a different team that I have no context of what's going on, and they say, oh well, we want to change our border color to pink. I save that file. That file is re-uploaded to that server. I haven't rebuilt my application. I refresh. I get an error. Shit. That was meant to work. 3G slow-mo. Um, the bills comment. I remember reading this thing before, and it was like Facebook apparently did this pattern where they had 2G or 3G Tuesdays, and they would cut off the internet. Or they would do something where they would like filter the internet in a certain way for certain developers every Tuesday, where they got the same speed as someone who had like 2G. And it was like this passive aggressive way to say, build a lightweight quick application, because you have to use it now. You're not as lucky as someone in a country that doesn't get fiber to the house, or 1,000 meg broadband wireless speeds, and you used to force people to do this. They're like, no, like, right, it's like, I don't want to fucking have to deal with this Tuesday pain in the ass. Let's build a better, more performant application. So, blah, 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 unclosed hook, I think I've ran into this before. Style.div. What was this again? There's something funny about style components. The funny thing is, all I did was change the fact that was pink. I'm definitely running everything off local on that. Yeah, the funniest thing is, like, you say third world problems. It is third world problems. It sucks. So let's see what our network looks like. So I get that. Right, okay, fuck, I literally did nothing. I went into that component and changed something. So, oh shit, I know basket. No, basket should be running. The comment. Yeah. Twitch's comment system is terrible. Like, I don't know if it's the fact I'm using Stream Manager on the iPad and then using the laptop for pure streaming. The lag is so slow. I don't know. Blame Twitch. Report them. So I think the issue I was having there was I was running the basket's own job as well as this multi-start job, whereas I only should be running the one job at the one time. So. Oh, the way it's all it's way down. Okay, well, that's even better. Awesome. Maybe my broadband is doing well. Okay, yeah. So sorry. So we have our basket. I can add more. If I then so basket team are like, oh, we decided we don't want a red border anymore. We want a pink border. Not pint. Jesus. There's nothing on my mind. Pink. Fuck you, damn it. So then nothing's changed yet. I refresh the page. I haven't, npm installed. I haven't linked any modules together. Click buy. Now I get a pink background. Actually, maybe I got it thicker. Meanwhile, my designer wife cries in a pillow upstairs. And she's on this. She should be here. She should be hearing me. Yeah. So they can make changes. It's not just like the styles. They could say like basket updated, and you can see like it's hot reloading, but that's all of them coming together into one. So now when I refresh this, basket update, I didn't have to reinstall that npm module. There's no npm links between everything. It's still it's pointing to the server to get it, and because I was talking earlier about like the fact that sharing the modules. So home, if I can get the home. So home's package JSON, close that down. Yeah, so home depends on these. It doesn't depend on style components. So because it doesn't depend on style components, Webpack knew you don't depend on Ramda or style components, so I'm going to load these in for you. Whereas if home depended on style components or Ramda, then Webpack say like, I've got these already, don't go off and get them for me. This means you're only getting the dependencies, you're only getting the code, you're only getting the things that you need and you actually want, and delivering those to the user for you. So and as well means like, if the basket team then decide to add some random ass package that no one's ever heard of, I don't have to install it. I don't have to care about the pipe. They manage it, they own it, and it just comes down the pipe for me. But again, yeah, you can run into problems with this. One of the main problems being if I kill this and I say run home, so run basket first. Yep. Yarn start. So I'll start up the basket. The one thing I fucking hate about Workspace is it opens up 100 fucking different tabs. So basket is running, waiting for consumers. Then I go to home, start my main application. Main application is going to call out the basket. Still getting a pink version, perfectly fine. Say something happens and a developer deletes that file, the server goes down, basket no longer runs. Basket isn't running, local isn't running, home's the only one running. So I refresh this, and then I click buy. We're going to get an error because it's trying to load a module across the web that isn't hosted, isn't accessible. If we go to our network panel, we're going to get a 404. Oh, we'll refresh the page from scratch. Yeah, we're getting failed request because it couldn't load those remote dependencies. And then I click this, boom, the entire app crashes. This isn't an experience we want. So what we can do in this case is utilize React's error boundary to like catch some of these dependencies for us. So we want to go to our main app, which is our home, which is our store, and we want to create it's been imported there, probably just that. So we want to create a wrapper for our basket. So we're using React's error boundary system, which is a class-based system at the moment. I know there's a hooked version of it, which is coming out. I'm hopefully going to use that soon, but we're going to say class basket wrapper equals, extends React dot component. And then there's a couple of bit of boilerplates, so like we do constructor, and it takes props, I think, and then we pass them to super. The good old days of object oriented fucking programming. An error boundary has error boundary things around it, so it has it can control some states. So the state for this is going to be has error false by default, I want to say. So then we also have a static method, and this is all just boilerplate from an error boundary. Let's get derived DRIV state from error. So we get a derived state from error, and then that's going to say return. So this is like saying whenever an error happens, what is our state going to be changed to? So we're going to say has error true, because now it has an error. Again, all standard boilerplate React, and then we have a render method. Fuck, it's been years since the last time I wrote a render method. So in here, this is where we can get interesting. So in here we can say if there's an error in fetching our federated component, i.e. the server hosting the component's gone down, there's an error in the component itself, which I'll show in a bit, or I think that's only two I can think of. We need to be able to handle this. Now the default a lot of time is like, oh, if this suspense component failed to render, then just render a div that says no error, contact support. But that's kind of crap. We already have our basket published on npm that we can consume and that we can use. So what we could say here is, create a fallback and say, get the latest version of the basket. If we can't get the latest version of the basket, fall back and use whatever npm installed version that we had. Yeah, it could be a couple of versions back, but it's better than nothing. And if you follow a proper like module Sember version structure, you could potentially go down the lines of how like Node.js currently works. They have a latest stable, which is like 12, I think, at the minute. They have an unstable of 13, a very, very unstable version of 14. But what if I want to say I want to give my users the most highest version, and if that version breaks or falls over, I'm going to give them the latest stable version. This is the version that's been through, testing and QE, QA. It's been approved by everyone down the stack. So in here we can then say tag if, and I'm going to say if our state has an error. Come on, autocomplete for me. There you go. So if it has an error, then we're going to actually do our fallback. So I think we need to wrap this in suspense. Yeah, we need to do it in suspense again because it came from suspense components. So react dot, and I need to get the code for suspense. Look at all those errors. Look at all of them. So this needs to return to. So we're going to return another suspense wrapper, and this will be, instead of loading basket, it'll be loading basket fallback, and then in here we need our fallback. So this is going to be basket fallback. And actually the thing I breezed over is the fact these components are loaded over the wire and over the net, but they still take components, they still act like React components, so we can still use them. How do we pass props? Don't know how we pass props this, but we're just going to give it some default props. So select is going to be ID 1. Just so we can get something to show up. Actually, we'll give it a dummy product. So we've got a product list. If in doubt, Guinness. So we can clean this up. Yeah, so we have our basket fallback. That doesn't exist yet, but if you remember, we had this that we previously were using. So now we want to turn this into a lazy loaded version. Yes, that's why I remember why we were doing this. So the reason this is lazy loaded is we only want to load the npm installed version of basket, so like our say latest supported version of basket, if the latest and greatest falls over. So there's no point loading two versions of basket, two identical bits of code. Try and load the latest and greatest. If that doesn't work, fall back to the latest stable, but do it dynamically lazy loaded on the fly, so we're not loading two versions of the same. So not that I can't type basket, but so we're going to say basket, and let's copy and paste what we have below actually. So basket equals react.lazy. I get our function, and instead of mf, which is module federated shorthand, we're going to say basket, and then we can comment that out. I'll keep it there in case I need it later. So this is going to be basket fallback, I think I call that. Yeah, basket fallback. So is it going to work? Is it going to work? Is it going to work? I think so. So we have basket wrapper. So yeah, we need to then wrap our suspense component in a basket order. Well, actually, yeah. So sorry. So if it's an error, it does that. Else, we want to actually load what we want it to load, and this is going to capture our suspense load back failing for us. So if we go up here, so that's going to return out, then we say if not, return that, and it wrap that up in a return statement. How do I pass the functions in these? I have to pass them in as actual functions. Can this take props? Yeah, it can take props. So what are the props for this? This is probably one of the first times I've ever used a an error boundary in a meaningful way that wasn't just like I have to install this and give it the default config that whatever the React blog told me about. Yeah, so I should just get them off there. So actually, yeah, now this becomes the same. So I don't need to give it this default value. I can have two reactive components that are fallback and latest and greatest. So to kind of recap, we have an error boundary called basket wrapper that if there's an error, so if there's an on-caught error down the stack whatsoever, and it bubbles up to this point, it's going to say, I have an error, I'm going to render this. I don't have an error, I'm going to render this. So then here, we're going to say basket wrapper, and it's going to take selected as a prop, and also set selected. I'm gonna have to copy and paste that. I can't fucking type that shit at the minute. Yeah, set selected as a prop, and it's self-closing. This doesn't have children. Could it have children? I don't need for this example, but it could, maybe. So there's a lot of typing, a lot of flicking around the screen. But what we've done is replaced our lazy loaded basket with a basket wrapper. Our basket wrapper is just a React error boundary class that will catch any error down the stack, bubble up. If an error is triggered, sets the state to say has error equals true. On the render, it's going to say, well, if I have an error, render our fallback asynchronously. That being said, if I don't have an error, load the latest and greatest basket asynchronously. That being said, compiling successfully. So let's see. Killer network, killer console, go to our network. We should see a failed call. So we didn't get any remote entries. None of those are running. If we go back here, it's just home is running, basket isn't running. All's good. Yeah, it's complaining about styles. He gives a fuck about that. So if I click buy, yes. So there was an error loading basket from our MF basket, which is our module federated basket, which is our remote version of our basket, which would be our latest, greatest, where you don't care about the version of it. Go to network. Yeah, it didn't even. It didn't try to render it because it knew these remote entries weren't available. And this is the latest and greatest stable. This is the stable version, not the latest and greatest. So now if I spin up our basket server, which is like our basket team are now, they're live, they've woke up, it's go time. I refresh this. Our basket one was successful. Clear that out, click buy. Now we get the basket with the latest greatest changes, which the team are focused on pink borders and updated text. So even if the server disappeared, we can handle it. But what if we go further and say one of the developers, why do you take me to the build file? I don't want to go to the build file. I want to go to the actual source file. What if one of the developers was sadomasochism is like, you know what, I don't give a fuck about this. Throw new error. So now this component will never render correctly. It's going to throw an error up. So if we go back to our example, like we have everything working here. New customer comes in, they reload the site. Our entry code is loaded. I click buy, we can see it loaded in Ramda, loaded in static components, loaded in the basket, but we're not getting the latest and greatest version of the basket. Well, because we had that error, fuck you. Because the error boundary can catch errors, it was said, right, okay, this component threw an error, it's some part of its stack. Fuck this shit, let's go back to whatever you tell me to do whenever an error happens. In our case, we're saying, well, go back to whatever we have installed in our node modules and use that as like the source of truth instead of what the latest graded is. This is a really good example of, you know, these teams are moving fast and building shit really quickly. What if one team, you know, what if the basket team fucks something up unbelievably and their component stops working? You know, with suspense, yeah, you get a fallback. You get a fallback component, but the fallback component is a placeholder with static text. Like, you're not going to be doing something complex there. You want to be able to say, like, well, let's fall back to something that actually fucking works, because we need to give something to the user, we need to give experience, and especially like if you're in an e-commerce shopping site, you know, every failed purchase is money down the drain, and it could take maybe a day, 2 days for that team to, you know, rebuild, redeploy their own code. Meanwhile, you're taking in the goal, like the test, the stable version of that build that doesn't have the new fancy features that they're trying to roll out. It has the stable version. So I always like to think of this like, you know, it would be a major version as always in your package JSON. Minors and patches come from the server and you get them for free, and every time they release a major version you update them, because what's the point of always updating on a patch when you could just get it for free over the server? So I think that is it for the stream. I know there's always a bit of a lag on the Twitch stream and stuff like that, so I'm gonna flick it over the cam, have a cigarette, and if there's questions, comments, shit in the chat, shout out, ask me questions about what's going on. I can flick back to the code, potentially go through, explain things a bit more depth, and like, you know, why I think this is good over other things, why I think this is bad as well. Like, this isn't like our saving grace and silver bullet, but yeah, fucking hit me up. Let's see if I hit the right key combination. Yes, I got it right. We got a few people in the chat firing some questions and stuff. I think we have some tunes going as well in the background, so it's not just me. I know we got Bill there. Bill, you'll have a question. How does this actually, there's more a question to Bill. How does this fare up to the world of web components and loading and building a dynamic site with different web components? And can you have fallbacks? Can you handle if someone's shipped broken code? Is it all npm module handle, or is there, you know, is there a structure around that kind of stuff? Web components is something I'm definitely going to look into in the future too. But yeah, I think this is an interesting approach. I've talked to some people about this beforehand. There is issues like this idea of like, oh, I want the latest and the greatest and give me whatever's out there. Sounds amazing, but it has its own perils, it has its own problems. You know, the biggest one is around, you know, security, managing dependencies. The shared dependencies I thought was really cool, where, you know, if the consumer didn't have it, Webpack gave it to you. There was the argument against it was if, you know, a shared module consumed a vulnerable package and you're automatically taking that in, then you're absorbing that security vulnerability without knowing about it. My counter argument is, if you go on the route where you have, you know, one main container and you npm install all these sub applications, sub modules, sub components, unless you are vetting and checking everything they do into their projects, you're going to end up in the same fucking position as you would have been anyway. There's no the arguments against module federation usually can be resolved by saying you can get in the same state that you're in right now. One thing I did here, and it did make me think about this, was the idea of debugging an issue. So yeah, that one where, like, the basket was throwing an error, and like, how do I debug that? You know, there's an error in the basket. Maybe it's the props that I'm sending to the basket. Maybe it's something I'm doing with the basket in the latest version that I don't have locally. Yeah, okay, like, it's hard to reason on and assert on the version that you're pulling in because it's coming over the server. You could spit out the versions coming in. You could do some sort of semver version, and you get managed that way, that you know, this is what we load remotely, this is what we load locally. And when you go to debug something, if you know the problem is with the latest and greatest version, then just bump your local JS to that and then run the same scenario and test on it. People worry about loading arbitrary scripts onto their sites all the time, but you think about the likes of like Google Analytics. Google Analytics is an arbitrary script that runs on your website. You have no control over it. You don't know what it does. It runs code on your site. It tracks user interactions. It tracks routing. It tracks page traffic. You don't know what it's doing. It could be, you know, harmful. It could be compromised, but you don't care because it gives you value for what you're looking for. Whereas if you put in like a content security policy and you say only load scripts from protected origins, only let them load scripts from protected origins, you're set up in a way that you're pulling in code that you control, your company controls, your teams control. And as long as you have a strong, you know, vetting security policy, everyone's running npm audit or snake, they can identify issues and, you know, resolve them. Like, the example I have is like in the basket, like say someone spelled basket wrong and they need to like fix that typo. You need to rebuild your entire product and ship that down to your customers just to fix that one character change. If you're pointing to a remote version of this code, you get it, like, every customer gets it for free. You don't care, you don't do anything. Like, they're fixing small niggly bugs, like minor patches, stuff that isn't a change in the API, a change in the logic that you deal with, and you're always up to date. There's none of these, like, you know, SLAs involved of like how you manage and develop and build things. I think that's one of the benefits. Like, a big downside to this is, especially with the shared modules and the shared dependencies, is, you know, certain frameworks work off different versions. They can't exist at the same time. React is one of those. You can't have React 14 and React 16 in the same application because React is a global and it needs to manage everything. It's going to have problems. So you need to coordinate with your teams. You need to understand what is our base level of our core framework. Static components is another. You can't have static components 4 and 5. Well, maybe you can have 4 and 5 the same because it's not bad. But you can't have 3 and 5 running together in the same application unless they're like heavily namespaced and scoped to the point where like they don't make sense anymore. Like, that's going to run into problems. So you need to kind of, you know, cull your modules, cull your dependencies, say, right, okay, if someone wants to move up, yeah, they can move up, but they need to like have the justification, drive the teams, drive an initiative to kind of put that forward. To say, like, we're moving to this new version of React that deprecates all these functions, and it's no longer a deprecation as like, you'll get a warning and you have to like mark it as unsafe. It's deprecated like that method doesn't exist anymore in the framework. So if home tries to run some lifecycle, it doesn't exist. The home's gonna fucking shit the bed because this basket is pulling in React 2020 or something. It takes coordination across teams, and in some cases that almost leads to a better development environment where teams are more communicative and they're not just running ahead of each other and saying, oh well, we're going to do this cool shit because we don't give a fuck about the rest of them. You can build a bit of unity and build a bit of ownership across everyone. But yeah, I think that kind of sums up the pros and cons of module federation. With that, I bid you